Welcome to the weekend. I'm John Caldera, your devil's advocate, and also the president of the Independence Institute. With me tonight, Rob Natelson, who is our senior fellow on, how do we decide to put this?
Constitutional jurisprudence. Talk about a jawbreaker.
That is some serious wonkativity. Yeah. All right, here, the original Constitution. Now, I want to talk about, apparently there's something called the Constitution, not that it's been used much recently, but it is amazing to see the level of interest right now in the original United States Constitution. And people who haven't read it before are starting to pick it up and go, wait a second, is what is going on in D.C., is this something that is allowed? How do they power it? What exactly is this? First of all, tell me, why so much interest now compared to 20 years ago? People are really devouring the Constitution.
Well, because the Constitution is a way to limit government, and people feel government is completely out of control. And they're looking for answers to rein government back in. So they look to the Constitution as a natural place to look, because that's the law that government is supposed to follow, and by and large has not been following.
Talk to me a little bit about the premise of the Constitution, and that we forget the Constitution was really written about what the federal government cannot do.
In large part.
In large part. I mean, it talks about the framework. We're going to have these three branches of government, and any of us who are raised on Schoolhouse Rock now understand how that three-ring circus works. And we can also sing the preamble, which is a pretty cool thing.
I'd like to see you do that, John.
After when credits roll. But a lot of the premise not only was here's how the functions are going to work. Here's branch 1, branch 2, branch 3. Here's how laws are going to be introduced. But it really had this thought of, here's the limits. This is what you can do and nothing else. Talk to me a little bit about that. Why was that such a big issue? Well,
it was a big issue because the founders wanted to protect liberty. They just fought a revolution to try to preserve American liberty, and they didn't want to create they needed a central government, because there was a fear that if they didn't have a more effective central government, that the states would simply eventually go to war with each other, or European powers would come in and meddle. So they needed a government, but they didn't want to recreate a system where London or Washington, D.C. Tyrannized over the people in the states. So they probably their biggest contribution was recognizing that you can take government power and split it, that it all doesn't have to be in one place.
It all doesn't have to be with a monarch. It doesn't have to be with a Senate. It can be actually split, so there's a check and balance.
That's right. So you've got some of it in the central government, and what you probably didn't learn in school is that the government has certain listed powers, we call them enumerated powers, and that's all the federal government is supposed to have, and that everything else is reserved to the states or to the people.
Let's jump on that as well. Article 1, Section 8 has, these are the powers. This is what Congress can do, and I can think of a couple. They can coin money, and they can have they can post offices. They can do roads. They can declare war. They can raise armies and navies. They can.
It's pretty good, John.
Let's see if I can get a couple more. They can regulate interstate commerce. Oh, wait a second. They can regulate interstate commerce, and now it's been decided that just about damn near anything is interstate commerce. If you could bring up the founders today and show them the scope of what the federal government is doing as far as nationalizing health care, nationalizing education, regulating everything, including medical marijuana in separate states, what would they say? I mean, it seems to me that that particularly that clause on interstate commerce, you could drive a Mack truck through this, and we've never had so much power vested in D.C. as we do now.
Yeah, I think that the founders, with the possible exception of Alexander Hamilton, who did want a big centralized government, he actually wanted a form of institutionalized corruption, but he was an oddball among the founders. The rest of them would have been absolutely horrified. And they would have blamed the people of the United States. They would have said, what have you done? You've taken our legacy and you've just dissipated it.
Give me a couple of examples. Let's use Obamacare as the example.
Sure.
Not only do I have a great personal interest in it, but there's a lawsuit going on, several lawsuits, but one of the larger ones with 20 attorneys general and the NFIB, the Business Association, saying you don't have the power to tell people they must buy a private product. It's not in there. It's not in that Constitution. This has really woken people up. Why is that unconstitutional?
Well, give me a second here. The original idea of the Interstate Commerce Clause was that commerce, which meant trade among merchants that went across state lines, could be regulated by Congress. The founders told us explicitly it was not to include other activities. It was not to include agriculture. It was not to include manufacturing. It was not to include land use, and it certainly wasn't to include education or health care.
Meaning that, let me see, because I want to make sure I understand.
They actually said that. It wasn't just left in implication.
But when you say not agriculture, you're still saying that if you're growing corn in one state and you're going to transport it over to state lines and sell it in another state, that the Congress can regulate how that's transported.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
But they can't tell you how to grow corn here or how to grow corn there. But once it crosses state borders, you can have regulations as to, if there's no tariffs or what the transportation, what the packaging is going to be.
Exactly. Exactly. And added to that Commerce Clause is a clause called the Necessary and Proper Clause. If you go to the end of that section you were referring to, you'll find that the Congress has the power to make laws necessary and proper, necessary to carry out its other powers. Well, during the New Deal era, the Supreme Court expanded mostly the Necessary and Proper Clause, not so much the Commerce Clause itself, to basically allow Congress to regulate the entire economy. And so the argument of the Obama administration is, hey, part of the economy is the healthcare market. It's a big part of the economy, and all Congress wants to do is to regulate it. And a part of that that puzzle there, a piece of that puzzle, are those folks who don't buy health insurance. So we're going to get them into the market and make them buy health insurance. That's their argument.
That's right. But that's also a moving target. Originally, they said it was going to be part of the Commerce Clause, and now that they passed it, they said, no, we also have the power to tax. And this is actually a taxing mechanism, because if you don't buy insurance, we're going to tax you $800.
But as you say, John, it's a moving target. When the bill was under consideration, they said it wasn't a tax. And my understanding is the federal district court has already ruled it's not a tax because it's not designed to raise revenue. It's simply designed to punish people who don't buy health insurance. So it's the Commerce Clause that's the real. But even if you adopt the modern version of the Commerce Clause, this thing where the government can basically regulate the whole economy, even if you do that, does that give you the power to drag people who are not engaged in commerce into the market? Right. Here's an analogy. The Constitution tells us that the federal government, the Congress, has the power to punish piracy. Does that mean it has the power to punish you because you're not a pirate? At least I don't think so. Okay.
Well, also, let's stop and say, one, it's pretty damn cool that our founding document has pirates in it.
I know.
I mean, that is good.
Pirates and counterfeiters.
Yeah, that's good stuff. All right. So the idea is that when it comes to regulating interstate commerce, that's commerce. You can't force somebody to be in commerce. You can't say you're going to have to buy that guy's corn over state lines. That's not there.
Yeah, that's the basis of the most important attack, constitutional attack on Obamacare right now.
Let me talk a little bit about the state of Colorado, and that when government gets out of control in Colorado, the people have something they can do about it. Mm-hmm. And I've certainly tried unsuccessfully a few times to try to put in some limits into the Constitution, because I have the ability to go directly to the people and ask, can we change the state constitution? Here in Colorado, we're one of about 17 states that has the initiative process, which means that we, the people, also can assume the roles of the state legislature. And if we pass something, we can put changes into the Constitution. We can amend the Constitution. When you think about it, a lot of people don't like that because we're not the professionals. You leave it to the professionals, they're there. But sometimes the professionals don't want their jobs to be any more difficult. And I think about some of the limits that we put in on legislators here in Colorado. The Taxpayer Bill of Rights, saying you can't spend more than this amount, and you have to ask before you raise taxes. Now, no politician, R or D, wants to be told you can't spend everything you have. Term limits. We said we only want you guys there for 8 years. Nobody in office would put that into the Constitution themselves. Even Amendment 23, which I think is a bad idea, saying you're going to spend X amount of dollars every year on education, whether you want to or not, legislature. These are restrictions we have put on them. All right, now that the Congress is